Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mazza on Mets as we talk everything New York Mets baseball. I'm your host, Evan Mazza here. Today, we're going to recap, obviously, the series against the Washington Nationals that the Mets just had at home. They swept the Washington Nationals, which counts as a little bit of a surprise for me. I actually thought the Nationals would uh, probably maybe win one of these games, if not maybe even steal two out of three. Didn't expect the Mets to sweep them, but the New York Mets have swept the Washington Nationals, and they have now won six in a row after sweeping both the Colorado Rockies and the Nationals. So they've won six in a row. They are red hot. They are now 21 games over 500 as they prepare. Starting tomorrow, we'll preview that later on as the series with the red hot Tampa Bay Rays. So that should be a very interesting series. A hot Mets team versus a really hot Tampa Bay Rays team over the weekend should be a lot of fun on Father's Day weekend. But before we get to the Rays series and preview, we need to talk about the Washington Nationals series. And this was a series where I think I think it would have been a perfect series if not for what happened today. The Mets won the game today, 4-3, but obviously the big story is Kodai Senga's injury, and it's a very hard luck injury, of course. But we'll get to today's game. But we got to start with Tuesday's game. The Mets this Griffin Canning started the game, and he did not pitch as well as you probably would have expected against the Washington Nationals. You would have expected a little bit better from him against the Washington Nationals. But he struggled. Griffin Canning had his second bad start. It's kind of interesting. Griffin Canning has now had two bad starts in the last three, and the two bad starts are against the Chicago White Sox and the Washington Nationals, both at home at Citi Field. But the one good one in between is against the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. So kind of fascinating. Very, very interesting and fascinating that Griffin Canning struggled against, teams you would expect him to pitch well against, but pitched really well against a team that maybe you didn't think he would pitch well against. But he struggled in this game against the Washington Nationals. And the Mets were down 3-0 early. And again, this would have been a game I was talking about before, where you thought, okay, the Mets might drop one, right? The Nationals were pesky the last time they faced the Mets, split the 4-game series in Washington. The Nationals have been struggling coming into the series, but you figured, hey, they're facing the Mets. It's at Citi Field. They're going to become ready to play. And they came out early and often and improved it and got up to a quick 3-0 lead. The Mets chipped away and chipped away and chipped away, and again showed their resilience that they've shown to this point of the season. They've done a very good job to this point of the season. They showed a lot of good resiliency and a lot of battle. Like we talked about their resiliency and their battle during their win against the Colorado Rockies in the first game of that series at Colorado over the weekend. But they came back. Soto hits a home run. And then it's 3-2, but then a home run by CJ Abrams. It's now 4-2. And we get to the bottom of the eighth, and it's the Mets big boppers that come through. It's Juan Soto and it's Peterson. But the big at bat, the unsung hero of this game was Starling Marte, who worked an 0-2 count into a walk. He gets on base. Juan Soto rips a double that he and I and others thought was going to be caught, and it would have been the latest example of Juan Soto hitting a hard hit ball that ends up being caught. He's had a lot of that this year, a lot of hard hit balls that would end up being caught. Actually, there was a game I went to back against the Diamondbacks where he hit a ball that actually would have been a home run at Yankee Stadium, but it ended up being caught. But he ropes a line drive to right field. The right fielder dives, tries to catch it, falls right in front of him. It gets back. Marte scores. It's 4-3 now. Nationals. Soto gets to second with a double, sets up Pete Alonso. He ropes a base hit to left field that hits the wall. Soto scores. Pete Alonso gets thrown out of second. So tie game, 4-4 going into the ninth inning. The Edwin Diaz comes in, holds him at bay in the top of the ninth. Bottom of the ninth, they don't score. Top of the 10th, Reed Garrett comes in. He holds the Nationals at bay. Luis Angel Acuna comes in the bottom of the 10th. The red-hot Jeff McNeil comes in, gets a walk-off base hit. Mets end up winning the game. A game that they were behind early, 3-0 again. Kind of thought, okay, this might be a game where they drop, this could be a game, that the Nationals come in ready to play. They haven't scored. They're looking to get back on track. Mets just came off a West Coast road trip. Yeah, they had the off day on Monday, but still, they were coming off a West Coast road trip. You thought, okay, this, like I said, I didn't expect the Mets to sweep the Nationals here. This would have been a game where I would have been surprised to see the Nationals win, but and they got Griffin Canning out of the game pretty early. I think he only went about four or so some innings, 4 2/3, 4 1/3 innings. But they got Griffin Canning out of the game, and he struggled. So you thought, okay, but the Mets came back. They battled, they battled, they battled. 4-3-0 turned to 3-2. 4-2 turned into 4-3, 4-4, and then McNeil gets the walk-off base hit. They end up winning the game at the bottom of the 10th. So very impressive stuff by the Mets. Very good job by the Mets to just keep battling and battling and battling against a tough division opponent that's come into this game looking for a win, trying to get back on track. Haven't been scoring much on offense. They come into this game, and the Mets are able to come right back and win. Very good, very impressive job on Tuesday night. And we're able to pick up their starting pitching. This was something that, you know, we've said before, and I think the Mets offense showed on Tuesday that yeah, they could pick up the starting pitching. The starting pitching has really carried the load for the Mets all year long so far, and it's been the Mets offense that really hasn't picked up them. Starting pitching in the bullpen, but mainly the starting pitching has done a very good job picking up the offense with its struggles and with runners in scoring position. On Tuesday night, on a day where their starting pitcher didn't necessarily have it, they picked them up, and they were able to win them a game for them. So that was a good thing to see, because again, this offense I think needs to show more of that, because your starting pitching isn't going to be great every day. It's baseball. The Mets starting pitching may be the best in ERA wise in all of Major League Baseball, but everyone's going to have their bad starts. Everyone's going to struggle. Griffin Canning had his struggles on Tuesday night, but so it's up to your offense with all of that star power, all of that talent, with Soto, with Alonso, with Lindor, with also Alvarez, but obviously Alvarez was placed on paternity leave, and Torrens started on Tuesday and Wednesday. But Mark Vientos, who currently is on the injured list, but still, Brett Beatty, for a former first-round pick, Ronnie Mauricio, top prospect, Tyrone Taylor, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, former batting champion. So you need guys, you need your stars, you need your stars to step up when the starting pitching is having a bit of a bad day. And they did that on Tuesday night. Starting pitcher didn't have a bad day on Wednesday night, though. David Peterson, who would have thought, pitched the game of the season for the Mets. 9 innings, 6 hit shutout. He was masterful. I think he got 7. He didn't even strike out that many people. I think it was only about 5 or 6 strikeouts. So I think it was only about 6 or so strikeouts. Um, so Peterson was masterful. He was in control. 17 or so groundouts. Just was, like I said, the best starting pitching performance of the season. And it's an incredible journey of David Peterson. A few years ago, you didn't pencil him in as a legit starting pitcher. Just 2 years ago, you kind of wrote him off. You didn't think he was a good starting pitcher. He struggled a lot over the previous 3 years after his rookie season, because his rookie season was 2020. He pitched pretty well. 21 to 23, a lot of struggles. And you didn't think, and again, 2 years ago, who would have thought this would be the case? Then he gets hip surgery at the end of 2023. He misses about 2 or so months. You still didn't expect much coming back from the hip surgery. And he comes back and ends up being one of the most consistent guys, on the Mets starting rotation last year. And he has come back this year. And I felt this year was a big year for him. I know he proved a lot last year, but I think he needed to do it again this year. And he's done it again this year. He has proven to be one of the most consistent guys in that rotation. And they're going to need him now more than ever. They're going to need him a lot more. Well, they're going to need him a lot more now, obviously, after what happened today. But what Peterson has become since coming back from the hip surgery last year, and Ron Darling said it on the SNY broadcast last night after the game, he's become one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball. And if you were to tell me that David Peterson 2 years ago would become one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, I would not believe that at all. I would think there's no way. There's no way David Peterson would become one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball. You know, I never would have thought that. I never would have thought he would become one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, and he really has. Over the past year, he has been terrific. So hats off to him. And last night he was, last night he was as good. It was the best outing by a Mets starting pitcher this season. Complete game, 6-hit shutout. You know, and he was helped out by a home run by Jeff McNeil, helped out by two home run performance by Brandon Nimmo, helped out by another home run from Juan Soto. Um, and add that all up, the Mets win the game. Peterson is the story, masterful performance. Took the series, took the first two, proceed to look for the sweep today. Today's game. Again, they cruised. They were rolling. Jeff McNeil in the first inning hits a 3-run homer. They're up 3-0 right off the bat. They're up 3-0 right off the bat. McNeil homers again. Brandon Nimmo later in the game homers again. Kodai Senga is starting the game, and he was cruising. Again, he was cruising. In control. You felt he could go 7. I don't know if he was going to pitch a complete game, but you felt he was going to go 7, maybe even 8 if he got a little lucky. But he was cruising, in control. This looked like another uh, good, very productive Mets win and a sweep. And then top of the 6th, 1 out. C.J. Abrams hits a ground ball to Pete Alonso at first base. Alonso's playing deep. He grabs the ball, and we talked about it on the show. Last episode, I talked about how great Pete Alonso has been on offense, and I talked about even his defense has been pretty good. And I've said before that he is a overall an average defender, but this season he's been pretty good defensively, except his throws. Except his throws have still not been good. He's never been a good thrower of the baseball. Never has. And this season it's continued. Wild throw to Ryan Stanek. There was another wild throw, I think, to Oscar Brazoban, where Brazoban had to reach out and grab it like that, on the left side on the glove. There was, of course, the throw at Yankee Stadium. His throws are still they are still a work in progress when he throws the ball to someone covering the bag or throws it to home. It's still a very big work in progress, and the dude is in year 7 as a starting first baseman for the New York Mets, 2019. The dude's in year 7 as a starting first baseman for the New York Mets. You would expect something like that. That's very basic. You practice it, you're taught it, you practice it. You practice it, you taught it. You would think after 7 years he'd get a lot better. But, you know, unfortunately here in this instance, it got Kodai Senga injured. And I hate to say that. I hate to sound like that, but I'm just telling you what it was. What happened was Pete Alonso made a very bad throw, wild high throw that Kodai Senga had to reach up, jump up into the air, reach up, jump up into the air, grab the ball, and then tag first base. There was no reason. There was no reason for that to happen. All Pete Alonso has to do is get the ball right to Kodai Senga's glove, and then he steps on first. And that's the second out. And Senga continues his game. Instead, I know Senga told Pete at, after the injury that apparently the injury happened before the throw. I find it a little hard to believe though. I just because it's when he lands on the base is when he starts feeling the injury. I think Senga, my opinion, I think Senga told Pete that just to make him feel a little bit better. But you can, if you watch it, watch the replay, Senga gets hurt right when he steps on the bag, after he leaps up into the air and steps into the bag. Pete's bad throws, unfortunately, got the Mets ace and the best pitcher on this team hurt. I'm sorry to say, you know, I'm sorry to say, and I hate to say it, but that's just what happens. And Pete, unfortunately, is going to have to see that every day for the rest of the season until Kodai Senga is back. And at the end of the game, Kodai Senga, Carlos Mendoza, Kodai Senga had to leave the game due to a hamstring strain. With 2 outs in the sixth, Jorge Castillo came in and finished and completed the sixth inning. At the end of the game, Carlos Mendoza said that it's a hamstring strain. He's going to get an MRI on Friday, and he's going to go on the IL. And that's a bummer. Senga has already spent most of last year in the IL. I mean, virtually all of it. He only pitched one game and then got hurt again. Got hurt in spring training, missed 3 months. Came back, was phenomenal against the Braves in that first start. Then he got hurt running off the mound on a pop up. Hurt his calf, and then he missed the rest of the regular season. Came back for the postseason. Obviously, he only pitched an inning or two in his starts. I think he came out of the bullpen too against the Dodgers. I think Game 6 of the NLCS, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Game 6. But you know, this is a guy who already went through an entire season injured, pretty much, and he comes back this season. And there was questions about Senga. There was questions about his injuries, his health, how healthy he's going to be, what's his pitch count, what's his limit, all that stuff. And he has been, well, he leads the National League in ERA. That's how good he's been. Kodai Senga leads the National League in ERA. And with Sean Manaea hurt and with Frankie Montas hurt, they needed Senga, especially Manaea. They needed Senga to step up and be the 2023 guy that was so close, that pitched like a Rookie of the Year candidate. They needed that guy. And he's been that guy. Senga has been phenomenal. He has been to me, even with Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga is the ace of the staff. And the one reason is this, or two reasons. He's great at pitching out of jams, and he's got the ghost fork. He's the one pitcher on this team with a true, legit 2-strike pitch. You know, that ghost fork is unhittable, and it's incredible. 2 strikes, he's throwing it, and hitters chase it. He's the one guy on this team with one starting pitcher on this team with a true 2-strike pitch. That's why those are the 2 reasons, in my opinion, he is the ace of the staff. And unfortunately, once again, he's out, or he'll be out for this extended period of time due to this hamstring strain. And unfortunately, it's not even his own fault. It's not his own fault. It's injuries are never, I mean, let me make it clear. Injuries are never really any athlete's fault. Unfortunately, they just happen. Unfortunately, injuries are part of the game, But in this case, Kodai Senga, there was no reason for him to get hurt. There was no reason for this hamstring strain to happen. But it happened because Alonso, unfortunately, has a lot of trouble throwing the ball to first base on guys covering the bag. Howard Reynolds brought it up on MLB Network, talking about the play. He said he doesn't like the fact that, and I think it's a fair point, Pete Alonso plays deep a lot at first base. If he doesn't play deep, if the Mets stop having Alonso play deep, that ball probably goes to Jeff McNeil. He gets the ball. He throws to first. That's the second out, and Senga doesn't have to cover the bag. I actually agree with Harold Reynolds there. But that's just not how the Mets do it. That's just how Pete Alonso plays a position. He plays deep. So, and I think it's because it's to cover the line, it's to cover the first baseline, especially when there's nobody out, or especially when there's nobody on base. It's to mainly play deep, cover the line, because players hit the ball harder. So that's just my opinion, but I kind of agree with Harold Reynolds. Maybe you bring Alonso in a bit, especially with the fact that he has trouble throwing the ball to first base with guys covering the back. Maybe you help him out a bit. I don't know. But it's an unfortunate, but it's the Mets now lose Kodai Senga for whatever time frame it's going to be. We'll find out what the MRI says on Friday, you know, but that takes them out. That's it. The Mets are about to hit a pretty, they lose Senga and I said this on the show, the Mets are about to hit a pretty tough stretch. This was just the beginning of this tough stretch. I include the Nationals in that because again, it's the division opponent and they're pesky and they're getting close. I include the Nationals in the tough stretch conversation. The Mets are in a tough stretch right now. Washington for three. They now have swept them. Tampa Bay for three. Then they get the Braves, who are Tampa Bay's red hot. Then they get the Braves on the road. Then they get the Phillies on the road. Then they get the Braves at home. They do get the Pirates in the middle, but the Pirates have good starting pitching. There's the Brewers. There's the Yankees. So they're not going to have Kodai Senga for a pretty tough stretch in their schedule. And it's, unfortunately it happened. And unfortunately it's because their first baseman can't throw the ball to first base. Can't make an accurate throw. So the Mets now have to deal with that. And moving forward, with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea still on their way back. Frankie Montas seems to be more closer to coming back than Sean Manaea. Manaea just had his first rehab start in Brooklyn. Montas had a couple of rehab starts. Montas should soon be back, pretty soon. Manaea seems to be a little bit away. So, but they lose Senga at a time where they still are missing Manaea and Montas. So we'll see how the Mets respond. The Mets have been resilient. They've been battle tested. Starting pitching has been very good as a unit, but losing their guy, losing their ace for whatever period of time it's going to be. Hopefully for the Mets, it's just a matter of weeks. Now they got to step up even more. That leaves David Peterson's got to step up even more. Clay Holmes got to step out even more. Griffin Canning, who's now had 2 bad starts out of his last 3, has got to step up even more. Tyler McGill, is going to have to step up even more. Paul Blackburn, who was comfortably placed in the bullpen, now he's going to have to come back into the starting rotation, and he's going to have to step up. And the interesting thing about Paul Blackburn, before the game today, Blackburn there's a report by the Athletics' Will Salmon that Blackburn or the Mets have been inquired by multiple teams about a Paul Blackburn trade. Teams have called the Mets about inquiring about Paul Blackburn. Well, now with Kodai Senga's injury, Paul Blackburn's probably not going anywhere now. Now Blackburn's staying put because they need him now. So it's going to be an interesting. It's good. So and this injury also for Senga it could lead to Stearns maybe going for another starting pitcher. I feel they need another reliever in that bullpen, and I think it was proven today a little bit more by watching Ryan Stanek pitch in the 9th inning today. I think they need another reliever in this bullpen, but with the injury to Senga and Manaea Montas coming back from injuries, they could use another starter. Maybe they could use another starter. Theoretically speaking, the Mets could use another bat in that lineup. They could use another reliever in that bullpen and possibly, another starter. And maybe another infield depth guy. Maybe another infield depth guy. Maybe another guy, maybe another infield depth guy. Maybe. But, it's so this is now where the Mets, so this is now, they're starting pitching as they're about to get Montas and Manaea back. Now Senga's injury happens. So it's something the Mets have had experience with it. They pretty much went all of last season without Senga. So they're experienced, so they know what it's like to not have him, but it's just, to me, that's the ace of the rotation. That is the ace of the rotation. And they're not going to have him for a big stretch because, again, their first baseman couldn't throw an accurate baseball. So Jorge Castillo, back to the game. Jorge Castillo comes in. Oscar Brazoban pitches an inning in the 3rd. He has a nice bounce back outing. Ryan Stanek, 4-0 Mets, top of the ninth. Ryan Stanek comes into the pitch. He gives up three straight hits. He doesn't get out. He gives up three straight hits. He doesn't get out. And Edwin Diaz has to come in and try to win this thing. Again, a game where the Mets probably were hoping not to use Edwin Diaz because again, they were up 4-0. Not to say that's not to say Edwin Diaz you couldn't have used him in a 4, but 4-0, yeah, you don't want to use Edwin Diaz. You know, you don't want to use Edwin Diaz. You don't want to use him in a 4-0 game, but they had to because Ryan Stanek couldn't get an out. So it's 4-1. Diaz comes in and he doesn't look sharp. Diaz, who has been as hot as he's been since 2022. Again, I don't like to use that. I don't like to say that because I know I've seen a lot of people say about Diaz, oh, this is as good as he's been since 2022. Oh, this is the Diaz we've been waiting for, that we were waiting for a lot of last year. Well, I always look at it as this: 2022 is kind of a once in a lifetime, a once in a. It was a once. That Diaz 2022 season was a once, once ever, once in a generation season. You'll never, you will never see Edwin Diaz or any closer have a season like that ever again. Unless Mariano Rivera comes back out of retirement and is in his prime again, you'll never see another closer like that do what Edwin Diaz did ever again. Never, 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 never again. He struck out half the guys he faced. But having said that, Diaz was having a really good stretch that, yeah, reminded you of the 2022 Diaz. Reminded you of that guy. But he came in this game and he was pretty cold. Couldn't throw strikes. Although he did get hosed on the 3-0 count that calls against Nathaniel Lowe that calls Mendoza let the home plate umpire have. But even so, even with the missed call, Edwin Diaz was not finding the strike zone. He was not finding the strike zone at all. So, and again, I guess it made sense because he was kind of cold. He didn't get warmed up till middle of the ninth because, again, Ryan Stanek struggling. So he had to come in a situation where with guys on base, and he had to win the game there. So Diaz comes in, walks the guy, walks Nathaniel Lowe. Josh Bell comes to the plate, and as soon as you see Josh Bell, you immediately think of, oh, last year Miami threw a homer in the ninth inning. And Bell gets Edwin Diaz again, gets a base hit. Bell gets him again, gets a base hit. And all of a sudden, you're thinking, uh-oh, the Mets are going to blow this game. And, you immediately think, oh, this is the game that turns the Mets season, the other way, right? Because Kodai Senga gets hurt 4-0. You blow it to the Nationals. You think, oh, this is going to be that kind of game, isn't it? But Diaz gets a pop-up, 1 out, gets a ground out. Actually, before that, he gets strike 2, swing and miss, but Francisco Alvarez, pass ball. That's been his problem behind the plate. He allows too many balls to get past him. Alvarez lets a ball get past him on strike 2. The run comes in. It's 4-3. Again, this is what we've said about Alvarez. You've got to get the ball, especially in that situation with the run on third base. That will make the game a 1-run game. You've got to keep that ball in front of you. You've got to. And Alvarez continues to have struggles with these pass balls. He continues to struggle with that. It's something that happened last year. It's continued a lot into this year. And again, I said in the last show, moments like that might force the Mets into playing Luis Torrens more times, even though they like Torrens more of as a backup and a veteran presence. And Alvarez needs to be the guy and needs to be the starter. He needs to be. But the ball gets past him, run comes in, it's 4-3. Runner moves to third. All of a sudden, a fly ball ties the game. Ground ball to Acuna, who came in for Jeff McNeil at second base. Runner doesn't advance to home, throws to first, 2 out. Next batter, first pitch swinging, which surprised me because again, tying runs on third base, and all you need is a base hit to take the lead. If you were the Nationals, swings at the first pitch, right to Alonso, he tags the base, and the Mets escape with a win. The Mets escape with a win. You know, in a game where you know, in a game where you thought, oh, this is going to get away, right? Especially with Senga's injury, 4-0 lead in the ninth. You just think it's 4-3. You just think, oh, Stanton can't get it out. Diaz is walking guys. He can't find the strike zone early. You're thinking, oh, they're going to let this game get away, right? This is just going to be a game where you go, oh boy, oh, you're going to let this one get away, right? And I'm sure you know, for some Met fans, they go, oh, this is the game that turns the season the other way, right? But they escape with a win. They escape with the sweep of the Washington Nationals. The Nationals have now lost 10 games in a row at Citi Field. But which is a bizarre stat. But they've now lost 10 games in a row at Citi Field. The Mets sweep the Nationals. But again, it's like it's again like with Senga last year. It comes with the that feeling of, oh, we won, but last year against Atlanta, Senga was phenomenal. They beat the Braves. The place was packed. It was a night game. Place was packed, having fun. Senga struck out 9 guys, and then he got hurt. He injured his calf. And all of a sudden, it just, again, it turned into a, hey, the Mets won the game, and today, excuse me, the day after David Peterson pitches the best game by a Met pitcher all season long, the best game of his career, Senga's going out there cruising. They're up 4-0. Great vibes. Everything's going great. It's the 1 year anniversary of Grimace's first pitch. I'm just throwing that in there, but it's the 1 year anniversary. It's everything's going great. They're up 4-0. They're about to sweep a division rival. And then go and extend their winning streak to 6 games and go 21 games over 500. And then Senga gets hurt. So a little bit like last year, So hopefully for the Mets, Kodai Senga is going to be okay. Hopefully the MRI comes back not too bad. Hopefully for the Mets, he's back pretty soon because they need him. They need him big. To me, he's the ace. Some might say Sean Manaea based off his performance last year, especially in the second half. I respectfully disagree. Um, I respectfully disagree. I think Manaea is great. I love him. I think he was great last year. But to me, the ace of the staff is Kodai Senga. To me, the ace of the staff is him. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's all right. But they're gonna be without him for, like I said, tough stretch. Braves twice, the Phillies, the Rays. Obviously wouldn't pitch against the Rays anyway, but still, the Yankees, the Brewers. A very tough stretch. The Mets are coming. The Mets are going to be on. Two. It would have been nice to have him, but now the Mets are going to have to deal. Now the Mets are going to have to go without him again. So, I think couple big takeaways from the series, other than David Peterson, other than what happened to Senga and Peterson's injury, is I think 3 things. One, Brandon Nimmo is red hot. Brandon Nimmo is red hot. He's turned it on, and it's a kid. Last year he did the same thing. He struggled throughout the first 2 months, and then he got red hot in June, and all of a sudden picked up his All-Star game credentials. Well, like not credentials, but like consideration for the All-Star game last year. This year he starts off. This year again started off slow. First month and a half he struggled, but then around mid to late May, he got going, and now he's continued that into June. He's been fantastic, and he's also been really good. I'm not saying it's to the same impact as Francisco Lindor moving the Leo spot, but since they moved Nimmo to the 2 hole most of the time, at least most of the time, he's been really good. Moving him back to the two hole has done him wonders. He's been phenomenal out of the two hole. So that's number one. Number two, Jeff McNeil. And I have been a guy who has been hard on Jeff McNeil. I think he has struggled in 3 of the last 4 years. That includes 2021, the year before he won the batting title. He's really struggled the last 2 years. This was a big year. He signed the big contract, hadn't really paid after he won the batting title. Things hadn't really paid off for him. So this was a big season for him. This was a very big season for Jeff McNeil. And he has come back and he missed a few weeks due to the injury, and he's been very good. And he looks like the Jeff McNeil from 2022. He looks like a little bit like that Jeff McNeil again. And that's a great thing to see because they've missed that the last 2 years. And when Jeff McNeil is on, the dude can hit. Look, he can hit. I don't necessarily like him hitting for power because I think his biggest benefactor is that you know, he's such a good gap to gap line drive hitter, you know, spray the ball all over the place. I think he's better suited for that instead of hitting for power. But can't complain when he's hitting home runs. But I much prefer him hitting line drives. But he's doing a very good job on offense. He's been very good. And again, you love to see it. You love to see it. And another thing you love to see is Juan Soto. You love to see Juan Soto getting hot. He got a double today. He got another walk today. He homered the last 2 games. You love to see Juan Soto getting hot. You love to see it. The Mets have waited for this. They've waited. They've been winning while waiting for Juan Soto to truly get going. He's been inconsistent. He got off hot, then he got cold, then he got hot at the beginning of May, then he got really cold. But by the end of late May into now, he is now turned it on. And he looks like himself. He looks like Juan Soto. I'm not going to go on the whole, oh, he looks comfortable. Oh, he's happy. I'm not going to I'm not going to do all that stuff. The reality is, he was inconsistent. He wasn't feeling it at the beginning of the season. It's not because he's comfortable. He's not comfortable with the Mets or anything. I don't think it's any of that. I just think at the plate, he just didn't, wasn't performing. He just wasn't Juan Soto. That happens. But the Mets were able to win in spite of his inconsistencies, which was a very encouraging sign because you knew that when he got going, it would benefit the Mets greatly. And he's gotten going over the past couple of weeks. He's gotten hot. He's doing Juan Soto things again at the plate. You can see it. And it's benefiting the Mets. It's benefiting the Mets. And he looks great. And he continued that. And he's continued that. And he needs to keep continuing that. Because a good Juan Soto, a very good Juan Soto, means a very good New York Mets. Lindor is Lindor, Pete is Pete, Juan Soto is Juan Soto. And they need that guy. They need that guy. So I think those are my 3 biggest takeaways. Aside from David Peterson and his amazing game, and obviously, what happened with Senga. My 3 biggest takeaways from this series are Jeff McNeil, Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo. And a shout out to Tyrone Taylor, who made a fantastic catch. Fantastic catch today. Fantastic. Dove like he was Superman, Tommy Agee, 1969 World Series. He plays such a good center field. He plays such a the Mets haven't had a guy like that at center field since Juan Lagares. I'll go even farther and say Carlos Beltran. They have not had a defender at center. Again, he's a better hitter than Juan Lagares. Obviously, not as good of a hitter as Carlos Beltran, but still defending at center field. The Mets haven't had a guy like that since Lagares. But I will even go as far as to say Carlos Beltran. He is such a good defender at center field. You really think he's going to catch everything. Every time a hard hit ball or a line drive is hit his way, you think he's going to catch it. I when that ball was hit today, I thought he would catch it. When that ball was hit to him today, and he made that catch, which was right after, which was the last out in the sixth inning, I thought he was going to catch it. I thought he was going to catch it because he catches everything. He's so good out there, and he covers so much ground at center field. So huge shout out to him, and a huge shout out to Starling Marte, who on Tuesday had the big at bat and drew a walk that set up Juan Soto's base hit, that sent him in, and set up Peterlonso's hit to tie the game on Tuesday. So big shout outs to all of them as well. Big honorable mentions to Starling Marte and Tyrone Taylor. Um, so anyway, the New York Mets begin a series with the Tampa Bay Rays coming up over the weekend on Father's Day weekend. And this is a red hot Tampa Bay Rays team. They're coming in red hot. The New York Mets have now won 6 in a row. So again, this will be a very interesting series, a very intriguing series with two teams coming in hot. Key for the Mets, and the key for the Mets, as always, is going to be their starting pitching. Their starting pitching will be the key in the series because the Tampa Bay Rays offense is hitting the ball really well right now. They're hitting the ball really well. This Rays offense is good, very good. But again, the Mets starting pitching, regardless of who they face, the Dodgers or the Cubs or the Phillies, their starting pitching always answers, always answers. It's been that good. It's been that good. So beginning on Friday, Clay Holmes, Friday night, tomorrow, 7:10 p.m. start. Clay Holmes goes on the mound, 7.3, 2.95 ERA. He goes on the mound for the Mets tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays, Taj Bradley. Taj Bradley, 4-5 with a 4.58 ERA. Clay Holmes, kind of interesting for Holmes, right? Clay Holmes has had a lot of experience closing games with the Yankees or coming out of the bullpen with the Yankees against the Tampa Bay Rays, and now he's going to start a game against the Tampa Bay Rays. So kind of an interesting reversal for Clay Holmes. Usually comes out of the bullpen against the Rays. Now he's going to be starting. Yeah. So be interesting to see how Clay Holmes does against that as he starts against the Tampa Bay Rays on Friday night. On Saturday, I believe it's Tyler McGill starting. Let me get that up real quick. I believe it's Tyler McGill starting. I believe it's Tyler McGill starting on Saturday. Why can't I find it? I think it's got to be. I think it's Tyler McGill. It's got to be Tyler McGill, right? Here we go. Here we go. Here we are. Saturday, yeah, Tyler McGill will go up against Drew Rasmussen. That's 4:10 p.m. on Saturday. Again, Tyler McGill. Tyler McGill, again, you never know what you're going to get out of him every single day. But now with Senga's injury, they're going to need him to step up now. And again, can he do that? We'll see. Can Tyler McGill step up? We'll see. This is a big start for him. Manaea Montas on the way back. But now Senga's injury. Big start for McGill, especially coming off the Rocky start where for 4 innings, he was fantastic. For 4 innings, he was phenomenal. 4 no-hit innings. And then the 5th inning, you saw the McGill struggles. So big start for McGill coming up on Saturday. It's a very good Tampa Bay Rays team. And now it's Senga's injury. And with Manaea Montas on the way, he needs to have a good start. He needs to show the Mets that, he's capable. But he's had a good year. McGill's had a good year, but it seems like you're on a start-to-start basis with McGill. Like you're just waiting to see which one you're going to get. You don't know which McGill you're going to get every start or even every inning, as shown in the Colorado Rocky game. So he's been good this year. He's I think been better than many anticipated this season, but he's still, I think, on a start by start basis, McGill. So, but they're going to need him now without Senga. And Sunday, excuse me, and Sunday's game, Griffin Canning will take them out 1:40 p.m. start time. Griffin Canning will take them out. He'll look to bounce back from his start against the Nationals on Tuesday night. He'll face Shane Baz of the Tampa Bay Rays. So be a very interesting series, I think. Again, two hot teams coming into the series. Um, Tough task for the Mets. Another team over 500 they'll have to face. You know, another team over 500 after they've gotten a couple teams under. They've swept away teams under 500. The Nationals, I think, are on their way, and I think they're decent. I think they're pesky, but regardless, they still have an under 500 record. So they've been able to beat up on teams that were under 500, and now we get to a bit of, like I said, Tampa Bay Rays. I know Atlanta's under 500, they're still the Atlanta Braves, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Yankees. So I think the Nationals was a good test because again, I think they're decent. I think they're pesky and they're a division rival. But now we get to a team like Tampa Bay that's red hot, playing good baseball. They're coming home. They're coming to Citi Field. Be an interesting test for the Mets as they face another team over 500 because they just got finished facing the Dodgers 7 times in the span of like a week. So, be an interesting test for the Mets. Uh, I'm looking to do another show tomorrow. Like I said, I want to get my brother in and get my dad in, kind of get a whole generation of Met fans to talk Mets and talk a little bit about our favorite players, history, you know, our fondest memories as Met fans. Talk a little bit more about the team currently this season. Uh, I'd like to do that tomorrow, but stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done. That seems to be that if not tomorrow, hopefully Saturday or Sunday or Monday. But we'll certainly be back on Sunday afternoon after the Mets and Rays series. And we'll recap the Rays series. They get an off day on Monday, so we'll do another show on Monday. That'll preview the Brave series and talk about everything going on with the Mets. We'll also talk about Kodai Senga's MRI results and what's going to be because on Sunday we'll probably get more of a timetable of his recovery and when he'll be back. So guaranteed Sunday show, MazzaOnMets. We'll do another show on Monday and preview their series with the Braves. So once again, this has been MazzaOnMets. Thank you everybody very much for tuning in. Leave a like. Please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. It'd be really cool. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for tuning in. I've been Evan Mazza, and let's go Mets.